Hello and welcome to the Wolves Report on My Leicester, and thank you for joining us for episode 108. Tonight we'll give you our player and match analysis from Wolves' 2-2 draw at Brighton. We'll ask, are Wolves going to stay up? Can they still stay up? We'll take your questions and look ahead to Saturday afternoon's game against Crystal Palace. Of course, I've got the Chuckle Brothers to guide me through the show in the form of Chris Tyler and Mark Knock. As always, thank you to them for joining me and giving up their evenings in the midweek. Also, thank you to everyone who's joining us live. You're either watching on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. It'll also be uploaded to Spotify. As always, the show is beamed out live. Please drop your comments in. I can see lots of people saying good evening and hello, ready for you from Australia. So appreciate your ongoing support. Gentlemen, go back to the weekend. It wasn't a win, but for 5 or 10 minutes, it certainly felt like one. I know some people had turned the telly off, some people had left the game. But in the end, it felt like it's a potential stepping stone. And I'm not going to get carried away, but Wolves have moved up a place, and I felt like Wolves would win on Saturday night. Chris Tyler, your take on Brighton Hove Albion 2, Wolverhampton Wanderers 2.
I mean, you know me, I'm as miserable as anyone, and even I was getting carried away with a 2-2 draw. But I think in the moment, I'm celebrating it with my dad like a win. Because it is, isn't it? When you're 2-0 down in, what was it, 88, you're buried, aren't you? You're done and dusted. I'm sure we'll come on to it, and I still think there's major issues, and my stance on O'Neill is still the same, but they didn't deserve to lose that football match on Saturday. I thought Wolves showed character, fight, heart, and I'm probably talking more about the second half. I mean, the first half, it did annoy me, it did disappoint me. And I think O'Neill's come out and probably said the same. So I think he's thinking now he should have backed himself and, started with a team that was more akin to the one that finished the game. But I thought when we went to that back four, I thought you can't really expect much more going to a team like Brighton away from home. And I wouldn't say dominate the second half, but I'd say it was pretty close too. Where'd you start? I mean, the first goal, I think we're all sick of talking about the goalkeeper situation, aren't we? But it's inexcusable. It's $100 grand a week international goalkeeper.
Under no pressure.
He cannot do that. You just can't do it, especially that close to half time. He hadn't had anything to do. I know Brighton dominated the ball, and they're going to, aren't they? We were too negative, but didn't really test him. And we've had the best chance of the half, haven't we, with Doyle's chance? So it was one of them. It seemed like a million things were going on. But to summarise, I think we fully deserved a point. It would have been a bit criminal if we'd have lost. And is this the moment? Can this be the kickstart to the season? Only the next 2 games we'll find out. But you'd have thought there's a bit of a buzz around the place this week.
Great start there from Tyler. Nocky, are you in the same page there? For me, it's very much a point gained. I know we looked at the Man City game and we looked at the Brighton games thinking, well, we're probably, the way things are going, we're thinking we're going to get spanked. We're probably 20 seconds away from coming away from 2 points in those games, which I don't think anyone would have seen coming, and probably 2 decent performances, but particularly the second half on Saturday.
Yeah, I think Chris articulated it very well. I was really disappointed with the first half. I thought the lineup I was quite happy with. The system I was quite happy with, but I thought tactically we were just incredibly negative. It was like a League One team going to a Premier League side in the cup and just trying not to get spanked is how it felt to me. And I think maybe at half time it felt like the final throw of a desperate man to me who probably knew that this could be curtains for him if he doesn't get something out of it. And they did do well second half. I think it's the substitutes were positive and they worked. I'm the first one to criticise him when he makes negative substitutions, so I'll give him just as much credit when he gets it right. And I thought the substitutes worked well. It's really hard to judge, isn't it? Because I think for 88 minutes we're in the game, but I think that Brighton have done a pretty professional job on us up to that point. They've kept us at arm's length. We've had a couple of opportunities. Doyle in particular should have scored, but they've been the better team. They've been better with the ball, better without the ball, and they've probably controlled the majority of the game. The second half we had a bit more of the ball, but they were. It was all nice, pretty comfortable passing. It was nothing to really hurt them. And then, a bolt out the blue from Aït-Nouri, and then they just seem to go into panic mode. We got our tails up, and the goal is the equalising goal is one of the most I've ever seen to go from 4 to getting an equaliser. And I think all the credit in the world goes to Tommy Doyle for the presence of mind he showed, and that I'm sure we'll come on to that in a bit. But is it a big point? I think it's only a big point if we get something positive against Palace. But it feels like it's a potential foothold in the season. We've stopped the rot, we've stopped the defeats. Sometimes you don't have to win a game, you just have to get a foothold, and potentially that's what we've done now. So there's definitely positives coming out of it. I questioned whether or not this team was still playing for O'Neill. It feels like, judging on that second half performance, that they probably are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit more positive than you on that one, Nokia, because I actually thought I saw the game that I thought Wolves were the better side the second half. I know in terms of, you say Brighton restricted us, but Brighton, we gave away a stoppy goal from Jose Sarr in the first half. They countered us for the second when we're pressing. Yes, better sides. I think they'd have been fourth or fifth if they'd won the game. They are a decent side. But I actually thought Wolves were the better side second half. And 2-0 felt like a bit of an injustice, but we know football doesn't really serve up justice very often. But in the end, Tyler, I thought Wolves were very, very good value for that point.
They were, yeah. It's funny, isn't it? If we'd have equalised early in the second half and you take a 1-1, you've probably got a different outlook to you do now. So it's just fine margins, isn't it? I mean, away from home in the Premier League, if you're 2-0 down in stoppage time, you're delirious with the point, aren't you?
Yeah.
I just think, and we'll come on to it, but I am with Nokia, I think, and some of the comments here, I think there is an argument to say it was a manager who knew he was trying to save his job. There is an argument to say that the point papers over the cracks, but I think the cracks are still enormous. And for me, it doesn't do that. It's just a point to our total. There's still more questions than answers from me. I mean, whether you rate Sarabia or not, when he plays for Wolves, we tend to have more control in football matches and we tend to create more opportunities. Why is that the first time we've seen in this season? Why did he start with a 3 if he's so adamant he wants to play a 4? Why is Joe Gomez still playing this hybrid right midfielder role that just doesn't suit him? And then when you bring him back into the middle, he looks a different player. There are still a lot of questions tactically that I think need to be asked from him. And he's got away with them because we've got a point. Like Nocky said, if you come away with a 2-0 defeat, you're going to town on some of those decisions, aren't you? But Nocky's right, credit where it's due, made a positive substitutions, got a point. There's this argument about 4 and 5, but if you give me watching Wolves in the first half to watching Wolves in the second half, I know which one I'm taking. And it's the back 4 all day, because at least I'm off my seat and I'm looking at us going forward.
Yeah, I think it's horses for courses. I mean, we'll come on to later on, but it is going to offer us a conundrum because Palace are 3-4-3. And that kind of, sometimes it's better to match up because obviously when Wolves were masters of the 3-4-3, 3-5-2, we often dominated teams and wing-backs made them pay. So it'd be interesting to see what he does Saturday. But in terms of entertainment value, you're absolutely right, Tyler. I'd rather be watching Wolves second half all day long when there's a bit of freedom. It's fun. We're attacking. We look in charge of the game and we're aggressive. But Lockie, let's just go back to early part of the game, the first goal in the game. Not going on the player performance just yet, but as Tyler touched on it, it's such an avoidable goal. I feel like I don't know if Wolves had gone to a back 4 at half time without that goal. And I almost think that there was not an air of panic, but like, well, I've got nothing to lose now. We've got to go for this. We've got to totally change it. Because it certainly wasn't working with Joe Gomez. And the most Wolves thing happened when, of course, Jose Sarr makes the mistake when everyone's saying that he should be starting. That's just the most scripted Wolves thing that was ever going to happen. But professional keeper, international, as Tyler said, that for me, it's very hard to forgive that goal.
Yeah, I don't think he changes it if we go in 0-0 because the game plan was working. We weren't losing the game. I mean, if you'd have offered him a point beforehand, he'd have absolutely took that. So we were there, weren't we? Pretty much. It's just, I mean, it's not the first time we've given a soft goal away. I mean, I can't remember the last time a team actually had to work to score against Wolves. We're just so soft, got such a soft underbelly, and we just give really sloppy goals away. And it's just a poor kick, isn't it? It's an unnecessary kick as well because just run the clock down. You don't need to just try and wallop it and get us moving quickly. Just take your time, slow the game down. Let's get in at half time. We can rebuild. So it's a really poor kick, and it's one thing in Sarr's game that has probably stopped him from being an absolutely top goalkeeper is his kicking, because his shot stopping, he's one of the best I've seen at the club in terms of shot stopping, and I think he's relatively strong all round, but the kicking's just appalling. It costs you goals, and you can't give a team like Brighton, who would have been in the top, I think they've been joint second if they'd have won the game. You can't give them opportunities like that, and especially Danny Welbeck with the form he's in. So it's an awful kick, an awful situation, and it's a shame because I think Sarr's done relatively well since he's come back in the side.
You make a really interesting point there, Nocky, in terms of teams don't have to work to score against Wolves. Even in the last couple of games, I can't really say that Jose Sarr's been peppered. Yes, he's made some good saves against Man City, but when you consider how many shots Haaland and the likes of those players have, Wolves' goals have really come from mistakes and unavoidable ones. You cut them out now, Tyler. Where would Wolves be? Because it's a great point from Nocky. The amount of gifts that we give teams, when actually in open play, how often do we get carved open? Because it doesn't really feel like it's that often. Yes, there's been a couple of games this season when we've capitulated away at Brentford and at home to Chelsea, but in most of the games, it's mistakes other than great football that's punishing Wolves.
Yeah, it's a very fair observation. And like we've said, apart from the Brentford game, there's an argument to say could have got a result out of most of those football matches. And that sounds bizarre, doesn't it, when you're bottom of the league on 2 points? And I suppose it depends if you're glass half full or glass half empty. But he made 3 or 4 very good saves against Man City, but you expect to make those. You're going to have to. But he didn't have anything to do on Saturday, did he, really? And we still end up conceding 2 goals, and that's probably Nocky's point. We're not mean enough. You know, we scored. I think we scored in every game apart from Arsenal, the first game, which is brilliant. But that's no good if you're conceding at the other end, is it? And you know that's his job ultimately, isn't it, as the football manager? But you are right. We don't tend to get peppered in games. We're not getting hammered. We're not defending for our lives. We're just not nasty enough, are we, defensively? And we are soft. I'm with Nocky. I call it a soft underbelly. The team's very soft. However, your counter argument to that is 2-0 down, we come back and get a point. So there's something there, isn't there? There is something there. There's, you know, Man City, you'd be encouraged from the performance. Brighton, second half, you're encouraged from the performance. It's only really the Brentford game where you sort of sit there and you can't take anything, because from the other games, you probably can.
Yeah, I think other than probably, I'd even say I didn't mind the first half against Chelsea, and they're probably looking like a champion. I thought we were good first half then, probably a little bit naive to carry on with that shape because they really exploited it, pushing it over to our left-hand side. But other than Brentford, you're right, there's something to take from every single game. It's just a matter of when we're going to couple all these bits together and put in one whole performance, as opposed to
Saturday, Sun at 5:30.
Oh, well, I'm looking forward to that. And I mean, that Molyneux is going to be feeling the pressure that day. It's going to be big. But moving on with the match analysis, the second goal, Nocky, Wolves caught on the counter. We all know about Evan Ferguson. It's a great finish. I don't really blame anybody for that. I just think that when you're pressing for an equaliser, it's a great goal. But Nocky, Wolves reacted straight away. I think it was Tyler's lover, Sarabia, that put the corner in, I think. For Dawson, who scrambled for it and he bounced and in from Aït-Nouri. I think it's Aït-Nouri's 3rd goal of the season from left back. Pretty decent numbers and a good finish as well.
Yeah, he was. I mean, Dawson tried the worst scissor kick I've ever seen in my life, and it ends up bobbling to Aït-Nouri and he smashes it in. So it was a good reaction. It was from a corner as well, which we don't tend to score too many from that. And it was vital to get back in it quickly. I thought the Ferguson goal, I mean, we talk about not making teams work for goals. I kind of think that is an example. Although you don't particularly blame anyone, it's a good touch, but it's a simple touch which puts him in enough space to finish. And the finish, you know, Sarr's got no chance with that. He's rooted. It's in the bottom corner.
We're not giving him enough credit. I know we're not here to talk about Brighton, and we're not giving him enough credit because it's very Harry Kane, that finish, that one touch and a cross, and I think he's made it look. Maybe we could be a bit closer to him, but I think he's made it look so easy, and he's supposed to be an up and coming sensation. It's a very Kane-esque goal, so I'm not really harsh for conceding that.
No, I don't think that the finish we should be looking at, but I think the supply line to get it to him was a little bit soft from that side. But, you know, you're splitting hairs, aren't you? You can find a fault in every single goal. I'm sure they pick plenty of faults in theirs, and they're probably right to do so. But it was a good touch, good finish. And we're in this sort of is it easier to play when you're 2-0 down? It sounds ridiculous. The game's gone. You can just maybe throw a little bit of caution to the wind and just try and get forward. And you know, it's a good finish by Aït-Nouri. He's got that about him, hasn't he? And I think he's probably been our most consistent player this season in terms of what he's been able to do down that side. So it's a good finish. It gets us back in, and it sets up a really interesting finish.
Yeah, and I want to spend a bit of time on this next bit, and I want you both input. It's crazy when your highlight of the season is a point away at Brighton, but that moment felt like not just a special moment, an important moment for O'Neill, not just a moment for the team and the squad, but it really is a foundation. Like you said, Nocky, it won't mean anything if Wolves don't win on Saturday, because that's when the pressure is. But the belief they'll have at training, I was so pleased for the fans as well. I mean, the limbs were fantastic, but for the people that have put the miles in this season, even if it's your first away game, for those people to get that moment, it means a lot as a fan. We've hardly had any of that. We've took the lead in quite a few games and done okay, but to get that moment of joy, like, it's only a point, but it felt like way more than a point. Is that fair?
I don't know. I mean, football's not about winning, is it? Let's be realistic. If football's about winning, you go and support Man City or a team like that. Football's about moments, and I think when you've been on the run that we've been on, to have a moment like that of just not getting beat, just that incredible feeling of the ball in the back of the net, and you finally got something, and you're not coming out the ground disappointed. And I don't think anyone at that point was thinking we've turned the corner here. It was just that. It was just a moment that the fans have deserved. You know, those who travel home and away, you've deserved that because of the pain that you've been through so far this season. I think that we all needed something like that. So yeah, it could be a turning point. I've still got massive reservations about the manager and about the rest of the season, if I'm being honest. And as we said, it's only going to be a turning point. I think you can judge it after the next two games whether it's going to matter. But in terms of just that moment, it's just that spontaneous moment, isn't it? The ball in the back of the net, and we finally got something to celebrate. And as you say, the away end was just incredible. The movement, even non-Wolves fans have picked up on the celebration. So it was just an explosion of passion, I think, and it was a bit of a removal of frustration after what we've been through for the first 9 games.
Yeah, we've talked about multiple injustices, hard luck stories, being punished. It was just a little bit back, wasn't it? Getting rid of that little bit of pain and having our own moment. And I think the club will benefit from that, and it's a big stepping stone. And they give a bit of belief going to Saturday. But going more into detail with the goal, Tyler, Aït-Nouri's tried to turn his man. I can't blame him. He's been put into a corner. He's got nowhere else to go unless he wellies it. He's tried to retain possession. He's lost it. I'm not really going to blame him for that because he's up a corner anyway. It's 4-on-1. We're all thinking, well, I've got to be honest, guys, if that was us three playing football together and we didn't score, you're going to be slated. Never mind the Premier League team. I don't know if it was great positioning from Tommy Doyle, but his second touch to clip it over the defender and then hit the pass from there was just absolutely wonderful. Cunha's picked the ball up. I'm screaming, give it to Sarabia, give it to Sarabia. I'm sure Tyler was as well. Give it to Sarabia. You've got to play it down the line. And he's hit it and the lot's gone. There's people in the lounges. There's people in the stand. It's gone crazy. But Tyler, it was a fantastic goal. And I know Cunha talked about it, but credit to Tommy Doyle. He's probably the slowest player out there for Wolves other than the keeper. But he's positional for the defending. And I'm not really going to credit that much because it's an awful pass from the Brighton player. But he was there. He's intercepted. The second touch was immense. The pass, brilliant.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with everything you said, but let's pretend you're a Brighton fan for a minute and your telly's gone out the window, hasn't it? It's gone. The lot's gone because, I mean, the lad's got 4 decisions to make. He can
even run into the corner.
Exactly. He can pass it to one of his 3 mates, who just goes in the corner and the game's buried. What he's thinking to play that past the door, I've got absolutely no idea. And then the one good moment of not getting your players tracking back and defending is that all the Wolves players were in the Brighton half, weren't they?
But why have they got 4 players up? Why are they pressing for the third in the lane? Why are they doing that?
And that's what makes you think, and I'm not superstitious, but that's what makes you think, is it the moment? Because there's no logic to it. There is absolutely no logic. If you've never seen a game of football before and you pause the TV at that freeze frame, and I say to you, which team's going to score the next goal, the blue and white team or the black team? 100% of people are saying the blue and white
No
team.
idiot is saying Wolves are scoring from 20
Exactly.
seconds later. Imagine 20 seconds later, you're conceding from there. You're right, mate. There's tellies, there's Xboxes, there's fire sticks, there's seats, everything. The lot's gone. Pete, you'd be furious conceding from there, livid.
There is no logic. There's nothing behind it, and that's why I'm just hoping. Could it be? But then on the flip side, the other part of me thinks, well, I still don't think he's the right man to take Wolves forward. And if you lose the game, does he get the sack? And you might have someone else in the dugout. It's hard not to get carried away in that moment because we haven't.
You have to enjoy it though, Tyler. There's not been enough.
We haven't had it this season. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you boys have both said it. We'll only know after the Southampton game. If we sat there on 8 points from 11 games, you can sort of take it. Any less than that for me, it's just not. It's not acceptable. And some of the guys here. I mean, realistically, we need to guarantee safety. We need 38 points, don't we?
I mean, I say that's guaranteed. I think 33, 34 will keep you up. I don't think Wolves can think like that, but I think 33, 34 will be enough this season.
Yeah. 40 is the nail. No one's ever gone down with 40, have they? That's the thing. And that has to be your target. So if you look at it logically and mathematically, we're nowhere near it and we're going to get relegated because you don't go from winning 1 in 20 to then winning 12 in 29. So something has to change drastically. But let's not worry about that because you're talking about the moment. Can it just be the tipping point? Will we be sat here in a couple of years saying, do you remember that goal at Brighton when we equalised? That was the turning point. And that's what it has to be.
I mean, it's not quite the same circumstances, but apologies for whoever messaged me. I think Wolves hadn't won or got a point or something in their first 5 or 6 games, and they scored in injury time at Crystal Palace. I think Adama crossed it and Jota put it in. I was in the press box with Alex Dickin that day, and he was so mad because he'd almost finished his match report, and then he had to rewrite the end of the game because Wolves had got an equaliser. But I believe Wolves went on to finish 7th that season. I'm not saying that's happening, but that moment was a turning point, and they just kicked on from there. So Wolves kicked on them. Not saying they're going to finish 7th now. I want 17th, never mind 7th. But yeah, it's an opportunity, and everyone will be thinking it and saying it because it probably should be. For me, from that position, it's very much a point gained. Would I have taken a point before the game? Absolutely. Would I have taken a point 2-0 down? It's fantasy football. Betfair, you're not taking any more bets. No one's betting on Wolves with 2 minutes to go because not to get a draw in that game. It's not going to happen. Let's go through the player performances quickly before we go through. We've got some good questions I want to get through tonight as well. We talked about it all briefly. Jose Sarr, Tyler, didn't really do anything wrong other than that kick. Didn't really have a lot to do, but under no pressure at that point in the game, it's very poor.
Yeah, it's inexcusable. I mean, if you want to give a rating, I think it's difficult. I mean, I'd almost give him 9 against Man City the week before, but you're probably talking a 4 or 5 because you can't make that mistake. You just can't do it.
Especially when it's out of your hands and there is no pressure. You don't need to be smart and cut across the ball.
He could have rolled it to Santi, right centre back. He could have rolled it and then kicked it. Like you said, I mean, what are the chances? But then, do things like you said? Do things happen for a reason? Do we then go to a 4 and get a point in the second half? Who knows? You're talking hypothetically, but he didn't have a lot to do. What he did apart from that was all fine. But it just means we're talking about the goalkeeper situation again, doesn't it? And we can't keep talking about it. So I think if Johnson's fit or when he's fit, he comes straight back in. So
yeah, I don't see it. I don't know.
We talk about him anyway, but yeah, it'll be a sad memory if that's his last one, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Noki, we started off in a kind of 3-4-3 with João Gomez playing out of position. Start with the centre backs. Started off with Santiago Bueno, Craig Dawson, and João Gomez. Your summary and a rating for those, please.
I thought the back line did well. Bueno was probably the standout for me. He's been really good since he came back in. They didn't really get through us, did they? The only time they got through was the mistake, and everyone's out of position at that point when we conceded the first goal. So I think there were probably 6s or 7s across the board because they didn't get pulled apart, they didn't get cut out. The 2 goals are both good finishes, both could have been perhaps avoided, but I don't think you're looking at your back 3 for that. So it's probably 6s across the board.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler, for me, Craig Dawson, I mean, someone mentioned again, if you can't stop it, Evan Ferguson, but Craig Dawson stopped at Haaland the week before, pretty much restricted him to nothing. It shows you how good Ferguson is. But I thought Dawson was fantastic. He did one block in the first half, and I think when he defected over the bar, I thought that was really good. What was interesting to me...
I'm with Knock. I don't blame either of the centre-backs. I think the first goal was the goalkeeper, and I might be critical, but I'd argue the second goal they scored was probably more on Tom O'Doul than anybody else. I think he had a couple of opportunities where he could have nicked it or put a tackle in. So I don't blame the centre-halves on Saturday for anything. And if anything, I thought they looked all right. I've got no issue going into Palace. If they've got Mateta up front with them two looking after him, no problem at all. So there was, I'd say sevens. I think Noki's probably been a bit tight, if anything. I thought the centre-backs... And to be honest, you know my thoughts on Toto Gomez. I thought first half he was outstanding. I genuinely thought he was very, very good. One of his
we messaged at half time, didn't we? It was the one game when he was probably Wolves' best player in the first half, and he's ended up getting subbed. But he's been sacrificed for the setup as opposed to his performance. Because
I like that substitution. I think it's the right one, because I think if you're talking about who are our best three centre backs, Toto Gomez for me is third in line.
He's probably the most athletic, but he's not the best defender, is he?
Yeah, and like Noki said, we've hammered him for substitutions, but he got that one right for me. And I don't know if Lamina, some people said it was a calf injury, but the two players that went off were the two that I would have taken off. So I can't criticise that.
Yeah, so some credit for Gary there. We've often talked about him. Well, I think I've said in the past, the phrase was he's quite often been reactive and not proactive, and he was this time. He's seen it happening. Wolves are unfortunate to be a goal down, they're punished, but he's taken action early and tried to change the game before the opponents have. So credit for there. I would agree with Tyler. I think sevens across the board for the centre-backs. It wasn't a game where I think Brighton deserved 2 goals, but again, Wolves have been punished and they're a bit sloppy themselves, for particularly the goalkeeper. Tyler, moving on to the wing-backs or the full-backs in the second half, Nelson Semedo and Ryan Aït-Nouri. Now, I want to start off about Nelson Semedo. I think defensively in the last 2 games, he's been nothing short of outstanding. His one-on-one defending, I think he's peaking his career now. I think Nelson's now 30-31, but defensively, one-on-one, I know again, he splits opinion, but I'm not sure Wolves will pay his wages for a new contract. Contract up, I'd be getting him to sign that contract now if he wanted to stay. But I think he was outstanding on Saturday. And then obviously, Aït-Nouri not as good defensively, give the ball away for the second. Maybe not totally his fault, but scored a great goal. But yeah, your take on the fullbacks and wingbacks?
Yeah, I agree with Semedo. I don't think he will sign a new deal because I think he'll want to know what league we're in first and foremost. I think he'll be looking to move on. I think the club will probably look to move him on as well. They're not going to pay someone north of 31 the kind of wage he's going to be on. But I thought he did well. Defensively, he was better, I think, than Aït-Nouri. He started to add a little bit more quality in the attacking third. Now he got the assist last week, which is something we've all been very critical of. So a relatively solid performance. Aït-Nouri, I thought his finish was really good. I know he's close range, but he's got to be calm enough to control that and keep it down. He didn't do a lot wrong, did he? You can kind of make an argument that he was culpable for one of the goals, but I thought he was relatively good, and they're a good side. They've got some real pace down the flank, so he kept them pretty quiet and limited them to very little in the attacking areas. But both of them were pretty good. It's probably a 7 for Semedo and probably an 8 for Aït-Nouri, purely on the basis that he scored.
Tyler, your take on the fullbacks, stroke wingbacks?
I'd want to know what's in Noki's cup there, because I think he's half cut, isn't he? Semedo, for me, Semedo, can't remember him really putting a foot wrong for the second game in a row. For me, he was outstanding. 8 or 9, and Aït-Nouri, I'd give the 7. Yeah. Semedo, I've been his biggest critic, but he's now added assists to his game.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely pocketed 3 Man City players and Matoma.
Yeah,
you can't ask much more.
I know we didn't have a show last week. We didn't get to talk about it, but the fact that Man City have had to swap wingers and he's bagged them both, and I know Mitoma's got him sent off at Molineux before, and as Greg, I've kept it on the screen, as he mentioned, he's a very calm character. Doesn't really seem panicked, and he can. It's a great comment. It's a great shout, Greg. Captain in the second half. Obviously, Wolves benefit from the system in the change in shape as well. But yeah, excellent for me. I think Semedo's an 8 and Ait-Nouri's probably balanced the books with a 7. But yeah,
yeah, not to have that. You've been outvoted.
I'm sure I could live with it.
Living with the world of a democracy on the Wolves Report podcast. Going into the centre midfield, you start off with this one, Tyler. Tommy Doyle and Mario Lemina started things off with João Gomez in a bizarre hybrid centre mid, right attacking, didn't really know where he was playing first half position.
Yeah, I think you summed it well. I want to see João Gomez and Tommy Doyle now, and I'm not sure I've probably said that at the start of the season, but Lemina, for whatever reason, it's just not working for him. It's not happening. I think his touch is off, his passing's off. I think we did have a lot of the ball in the first half, but we gave it away so sloppily, and that I think that's not just at him, that's at Ait-Nouri, Strand Larsen, Kuna. First half, we were just sloppy, weren't we? But we looked to calm a better outfit second half with Lemina not in the side, and I think Doyle has probably done enough now to cement a place moving forward. And I think Gomez is the best one still at sort of getting the ball back, winning it and giving it to someone else. So I think moving forward, they're the two I'd like to see. It's a waste of time playing João Gomez in that hybrid role. I just don't like it at all. I think if you're going to do it, that suits a Bellegarde type player rather than
someone that can carry the ball.
Gomez. Yeah. Can O'Neill back himself to make big decisions? Because they are big decisions. They bought Andre for, 15, 20 odd million. Are they going to leave him out the side? Is he going to leave his captain out the side? He's got some big decisions to make, I think, moving forward. But if you're looking ahead to Palace, who have got sort of Wharton, Hughes in midfield, I'd like to think you could put a Tommy Doyle in there to play as well, like they would. I don't think you need to fear it too much. But to answer the question on the game, I thought Lemina was poor. Doyle is obviously going to get the plaudits for the goal, but I thought, if we're honest, he should have scored to put 1-0 up. And like I said,
at least hit the target is the minimum.
Just have a touch. He's got all the time in the world. And I did think he could have done more for their second goal, but he's going to get obvious plaudits for what he did. But Lemina probably a 5, and then I think Gomez a 6, and maybe Doyle a 7 if you had to put a name on it. But that's where I'm at.
Yeah, just moving on to make a really interesting point regarding the centre midfielders. It's not often, I love this phrase, but it's not often we've had positive problems, because going into these next run of fixtures now, I don't see any excuse for not playing 2 centre midfielders. Now, with Doyle stepping up and showing his class on the ball, we know he's good on the ball anyway. He hasn't got the engine of the others and the physical attributes, but he's a footballer that makes things tick and makes things happen, as we saw on Saturday. So surely now, you can go with the 2 in front of a back 4, if it is, or even if it's a 3 centre backs, them 2 in front. You know they can go hell for leather for an hour, because you've got an Andre or a Mario Lemina as your 2 subs. That's dreamy stuff, that is. You've got 2 players there, 4 players going into 2, and that should really work. That should give you legs throughout the game. Positive problems. It's I'm pleased Tommy Doyle's taking his chance. I can see.
Has he taken his chance, though? I mean, if he doesn't have that 4-on-1 in the last minute, we're talking about a really good Tommy Doyle performance. I thought first half he was pretty poor. I don't think he was. I thought his passing was off. I don't think he was slowing it down. He wasn't great on the ball. Second half he improved slightly, but I think he was potentially at fault for the goal. For me, I think if you take that 4-on-1 out of it, I don't think you're putting him anywhere near a 7 for me. Just my opinion. I think if you're picking
a 7 because of that. Otherwise, it would.
You're right enough, but
you didn't give Ait-Nouri an 8 based on his goal. So if you're looking at pure individual contributions, for me, I don't think that's enough to make him one of the 2 starters out of the.
I gave Ait-Nouri a 7, the same. I'd give them both the same.
Yeah, but for me, I don't think he wouldn't be my first choice out of that 4 midfielders that we've got. Not saying that I'm fussed if he does play. If he plays as a blinder, then I'll be absolutely delighted.
Who are your 2 then? If you're playing a 2, who are you playing?
What I would like, and what I think, if it was me, I'd play Gomez and Andre. That'd be my turn. But I think he'll play Lemina because he's been proved wrong a few times in the last few weeks. I think that potentially if he drops Lemina now as well, it's almost another nail in the coffin because it's another decision he's got wrong. So for me, I'll play them. But if Doyle plays and has a blinder against Palace, and he can unlock a defence, we know that he has got a decent pass on him. But I think when you're up against a side like Palace, who are so physical, you need that little bit of physical dominance in the middle. And I think we get that with Andre.
Just to put a
what
spin
you
on
said
that,
there about Lamina,
can I just put a spin on that? You said if he drops Lamina, so it's a nail in his coffin, though. But isn't that a manager being brave, making decisions? Because as someone said, I think wearing the armband is very much, it's overinflated more than it needs to be, because you have multiple players talking and organising on the pitch. It's very much a glamour position, getting the armband. It's nice, but it's not like the diggy steel going for me. But if you're prepared to do that, surely that's brave as opposed to nailing the coffin, would you not say? Because I don't really care who's captain. I just want Wolves to get points.
I think that's an absolutely fair point. Where I kind of caveat that is, he went to a 4, everyone was screaming for a 3, refused to do it. He then goes to a 3, and we have a real good performance against Man City, then starts with a 3, and then he has to go to a 4 again because it's not working. He's put Lamina as captain. Lamina's not been great since he's been captain, so is that a mistake? And I think you are right in what you're saying, and I think if Wolves are 7th or 8th in the league, we're probably lauding him for being brave enough to make it. But I think if you've got a manager who appears to make the wrong decision, maybe you're looking at it a different way. Just my opinion.
Fair. Moving on to the forward 2, Jurgen Strand-Larsen and Matthias Cunha, Tyler.
Well, it's one of them, and like Cunha's going to get the plaudits for the goal, but I thought both of them, their touch was poor. They struggled to get into the game. I think Strand-Larsen, I think he's a very good player, but I don't think we probably got the best out of him yet in what we're trying to do.
You want more from him, don't you? More physicality from him.
I think so. I think there's almost an argument that he comes across a bit too nice, but the ability is obviously there, isn't it? And he's obviously, scored 3 goals this season. He's a good player, isn't he? You can see that. And this is what I suppose I've just been listening to what we're talking about with our players, and then I'll sit here and think, how the hell are we bottom of the league on 2 points? And I'm sure we'll come on to it, but Strand-Larsen and Cunha are both quality footballers. How are we not getting the best out of them? I mean, Cunha's goals, I think there's luck with the deflection, but you could argue it's going in anyway. But
I think he's fine in the far corner and it might get stopped if it's on the floor.
You're talking the strikers of scoring goals, aren't they? They're making things happen. I thought they were very off first half, but just that tweak with Sarabia just seemed to both free them up a little bit, and they just almost had more energy about them second half and more to go for. I think they were stifled a little bit by the formation in the first half, maybe. They're both very fine footballers. And I think it makes me think, you're talking about Semedo, Aït-Nouri, Andre, Gomez. How is this team sat on 2 points? Because it's criminal in a way.
You're right, yeah. There's a Twitter page called Stat News FC. Did a few tweets about Matthias Cunha after, and these are great stats. I didn't think Matthias Cunha. I thought sometimes he looked a bit lethargic. I didn't think he was great, but then I looked at these stats, and then I've been made to eat my words. So Matthias Cunha v Bolton, 4 chances created, most 5 shots, most 6 duels won, 13 touches in the box, the most. Now, I haven't fact-checked this, but this account's got a goal tick, so they must do their stats well. It says there, only one player has put better numbers in the Premier League game this decade than that, and that was Bukayo Saka via Leicester City. So if he's knocking up numbers like that at a team like Brighton, that's a better performance than I could see. And also, Matthias Cunha has scored 12 away goals since the start of the Premier League last season. Only Erling Haaland with 16 has more. So, yeah, and you know what? I don't think Matthias Cunha is fully cooking yet. I think he's capable way more than I think. That he peaked at Chelsea last year with that hat trick, and that guy, I don't think he is. I still think he's 20% off that. Would that be fair?
I think so. Yeah. Look, he's a top class player, isn't he? And I think he set the standard so high that when you view him as not being at that level, you almost think he's had a bad game, but then you don't realise some of the things that he does. I mean, in the first half, the run to set up Tommy Doyle when he should have scored and he put it over the penalty spot. That's just a fantastic run, and he's composure when he gets into the area for the second goal as well. He's not looking to shoot from there; he's looking to pass, but there's no one available, so he just takes a pop. He's a top draw player, but I think he's He sounds daft, but he's very Brazilian. You see, with all the really good Brazilian strikers, they look really lazy, they look bored, they look lethargic, and then suddenly they'll just come to life when the opportunity's there, and you'll see them do something ridiculous with the football, and that's kind of where he is as well. When we were at Nottingham Forest last season, when he'd had a really poor game, and then he just ends up picking the ball up on the halfway line, beats two players and slams it in the top corner. He's just got that about him. He's got that level of quality. So it's almost a little bit like a Jota. I think when you lose him, you realise just how good he was.
Hopefully that's not for a while yet. Last but not least, Tyler, we don't usually do the subs, but we had two subs at half time. Sarabia came on for Mario Lemina and Carlos Forbes came on for Toti Gomez. So, yeah, tell me about Pablo Sarabia and Carlos Forbes. I know you've been wanting to talk about this chat for a while.
I mean, Pablo Sarabia, you can't give anything less than a 10, can you? I mean, his left foot. He could open a tin of beans, couldn't it, that left peg? But I think the stats, in a way, are probably a bit misleading. So I think he created 4 chances, according to the stats, on Saturday in half a game. So I just think we look a better team with him in it. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. We just look a nicer side when he's in it. He did give the ball away, I think, at one point. I thought, oh, here we go, they're going to score.
There was that back pass, wasn't there, when Dawson saved us, yeah.
He's neat and tidy. He keeps the ball. He keeps it in the opponent's third. He's just someone that they've got to think about picking up and not giving too much time to. He's not all action. He's not all pace. But I think if we're going potentially 4-2-3-1 or playing 4 forwards, he's got to be one of them. For me, he just has to be. I think Kuna's a better player when he's in the side.
Yeah, it's the old argument. Well, footballers bring the best out of footballers, Tyler, don't they? The more footballers you have in the team, the more you're going to get out of the talent. But I don't want him on that right-hand side because I'm not expecting him to get forward. I want him more central. I want him, but then that's the only place he can play. Strand Larsen's obviously playing the 9. Cunha's obviously playing the 10. And then on the left-hand side, then this is we'll come on to the team for this in a bit. But where does he play then? That's the question. Where does he play?
I know what you're saying because you want Cunha in the 10, but I think he just has to play. And I thought Forbes, to be honest, without being rude, I thought Forbes was dreadful. If you actually look at his performance, it was smelly. However,
Wolves look better with him in the side, though.
Yeah, because Brighton are thinking, oh, this lad's got a bit of pace. This lad can hurt us. And sometimes that's not enough. Obviously, you need to play and have output. I mean, I thought he was terrible, but he's giving them something to think about, and it's an outlet and it's an option, which we just didn't have in the first half. So I think if we're going 4-2-3-1, Gary's got to quickly figure out what that front 4 is.
Let's move on to some questions. Here we go. Let's move on. Every week I put it out on Twitter before the show. Get as many. I've had loads again. I've gotten as many as I can, and we'll try and get through. We're 42 minutes into the show. Appreciate all your questions so far. Steve Lee's asked, good evening, Steve. Still many unanswered questions regarding 4 of the 5 at the back. Do we need to be flexible based on the opposition? And who do we think Gary O'Neill sees as our keeper? Great question. Nocky, start us off with that one.
I think he sees Johnston as the keeper. I think that's his number 1. In terms of 4 or 5 at the back, you'd like to think that your manager would pick a team to win a football match. I mean, if you go into a Man City, a Liverpool, an Arsenal, you're going to need to be 3 at the back, aren't you? Whereas if you're playing those,
definitely plays for a 5 this season against the better teams.
Yeah, you can't just have one system, can you? You've got to have a system that's a hybrid and flexible and moves into different areas. You can't just be saying we're either playing a 5 or we're playing a 4. It's got to be based on the opposition. So I think that the team needs to be drilled to be able to play 2 areas, and you're going to base that based on who you're up against, aren't you? So if you get Southampton at home, you're going to want to play potentially 5 at the back against Southampton. We're going to sit and just try and break. For me, you're probably not. You're going to look at a 4, but then you're not going to go to a Man City if you've got any sense and try and take them on, because you're going to end up getting spanked.
Absolutely, sort of. And I know the 4 and the 5, and this next question, this comment's it splits the pack really. So, Steve, thanks for being part of the show. Jay says, largely supportive of Gary O'Neill, but is he determined to die on the 4 at the back hill, which will suit the Palace forwards? Unsure of how any manager looks at our defence and seriously thinks he can survive with a back 4. Well, to counter that, Jay, I would say playing a back 4 in the second half is the reason Wolves got a point, and they were playing a back 5, and there was, as Tyler said, there was no way out. I do think though, playing a 5, as Nocky just mentioned, Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea now, I'd say any of those teams, I think you play a back 5 because you will get badly punished. Whereas on Saturday, I mean, I may be wrong. I think Wolves, I mean, maybe different for Saturday because Palace go with three at the back as well. But I think this next glut of games, Tyler, I think four at the back is the way forward. I mean, I don't really care if they play one at the back if Wolves win. I don't really care who plays. But I do think going forward, and he critiqued himself at the end of the game and said, I'm disappointed I went with it again. I should have gone with a 4. So I think you'll go with the 4 going in this next bunch of games.
Yeah, I do. But I think the 3-4-3 option with the right players would still work. If it's a 3-4-3 with a Sarabia, Kuna, Strand Larsen 3, or a Forbes, Kuna, Strand Larsen 3, you can almost accept.
It has to be 3 forwards, yes.
When it's 3-5-2 with like Kuna off Strand Larsen, I mean, it was hopeless, wasn't it, first half, let's be honest. And I always thought it would be because you're not going to win many Premier League games with just 2 attacking options on the pitch, are you? I'm with you. I think it's nailed on to go to a 4 now for the rest of the season, apart from the top teams. He's come out and said after the game he regrets going to a 5, and that's away at Brighton. So it's nailed on to go back to a back 4. And you know what? I'm all for it. Whatever happens, because we're in a position now where it's do or die, isn't it? We've got to win. We've got to win football matches. And if we play it the right way, I don't see any reason says why it can't work. But he might just stumble across it with Bueno in the side, with Dawson in the side, getting the midfield combination right. He might just stumble across something that might work.
Isn't it a bit of a concern, though, that he still doesn't know?
Oh, massive.
We're 9 games and he still doesn't know. I mean, granted, we're not 100%, are we? But he didn't work for 7 games. And then he decided to change it, and it clearly wasn't working. And now he's done it for a game and it worked. Didn't work for half a game against Brighton, although we were relatively tight, and now he's going to scrap it and go back to the 4 again. It just feels like real poor management to not have any real idea.
As you said, though, Nocky, doesn't it?
I agree.
Hasn't it got to be horses for courses, though? We can't have the. I know we did it more under Nuno, but I don't think now we can. We are the kind of side that can stick with a rigid setup. I do think because we were better the second half against the very good sides that were flirting with the Champions League positions at that early stage of the season if they'd have won. Yeah, we were defensive against them. We didn't really have an out ball. There was a player out of position. Yet second half, as I said, I think we're the better side. So, and that was with 4 at the back. I think we have to be flexible. Yeah,
I think you're right. But then at the same time, the 4 worked really well in the second half against Brighton, although we did concede a goal. It hasn't worked for the previous 7 games. So are we judging it on the first 7, or are we judging it on 45 minutes against Brighton?
Yeah, that's a good point. But as I said at the start of the show, I think there's been many good spells with the back 4, like first half at Villa, first half at Newcastle, first half at Chelsea. There's been many good performances with the back 4, and I just think it's horses for courses. And I know I've talked about this before, but when you're a goal up in those games, I think then you go to a 5 and change it. That's what I think has cost us there as well. But I don't see anything in going anything but a back 4 for the up and coming games. But the next section, I've done the questions first. I'll try and get a few more a bit later on. Can Wolves stay up? Will Wolves stay up? We talked about this about a month ago, and it was very much doom and gloom. Granted, we've only doubled our points tally since then, but Saturday just seemed to give people a little bit more belief. Has it changed your outlook, Tyler? Are Wolves going to stay up now? Do you feel any better, or do you think the writing's on the wall?
I think the writing's on the wall 100%. If I was a Leverton fan or a Leicester fan, I'd be looking at us and saying absolutely no chance. Because you don't go from picking up 2 points out of 27 to then picking up 38 points. It just doesn't happen. It's just not. It's going to require a mammoth effort, similar to what I think was it Bournemouth last season. They didn't win in their first 10. But that was a new manager that was inputting new ideas. And I feel we're a football team that's just regressing, basically. And Nocky's just hit the nail on the head. How your manager can come out and say, well, I regret doing that. I should have done this. You're talking Premier League football managers. If they don't back themselves and they can't pick a team and a way of playing to move us forward, then that's the biggest concern for me. So mathematically, scientifically, however way you look at it, I don't see how Wolves pick up another 35, 36 points this season.
Just one thing there before we move on to Nocky's opinion on that. we often criticise the managers for trying to sometimes fill us full of crap or whatever and making excuses. But now we're going to criticise the manager for being honest. He's got it wrong and he feels bad. But I'm comfortable with him going, I've got it wrong and I've made an early change. And as a result, I've got a point at Brighton. I'm actually all right with that. Granted, there's many things he's got wrong and the team's got wrong and then the decisions have gone against us, but mainly self-inflicted where Wolves are. However, if the manager's holding his hands up and making an early change and getting a point, I'm okay with that.
I'm glad you're okay because I'm not okay with the current situation.
I'm not okay with the current situation, but I'm okay with him holding his hands up and changing it.
I think if you're Unai Emery, I think if you're Eddie Howe, I think if you're the Brighton manager, you can get away with those comments because you sat in the top echelons of the league and you're looking like a good side. We're not. We're on 2 points, and I think for me, it just similar to Nocky, that raises more questions for me than anything else. And I think we've just still got more questions than answers. He got the substitutions right, but again, without agreeing with Nocky too much, they were panic substitutions about someone that's just saving their job and desperate to get a result from the football match. I'm not seeing us tactically outplay teams, outwit teams. I still don't really know what our style is. I still don't know what our way of playing is. And therefore, I don't see how we change. I mean, he's 18 months in now, well, near enough. And we're worse, aren't we, than when he first took over? So that's not a good sign, is it? If you look at the cold, hard light, we're a worse team now than his first game where we had 5 minutes to prepare for it.
Yeah, that Man United performance seems a long way where we off now. Granted, there's a few players disappeared since then, but that performance at Old Trafford, Wolves were fantastic and very, very well. Still feel aggrieved now from not getting that penalty, but we can all agree. We can all talk about it till we're blue in the face. But like we've said, should this set of players be on 2 points from 27 bottom of the league? No. Hard fixtures or not, Wolves should be on more points than they are now. Has there been hard luck stories? Yes. Has there been tactical errors? Yes. Are we getting the best out of the players? No. But Nocky, your take on Wolves staying up this season? Can they? Will they?
I don't think so. I mean, we're a quarter of the way through the season and we've got 2 points. And let's face it, we're a 4-on-1 away and a good pass away from losing that game 3-1, and we're sat on 1 point. I just think under this manager, I don't believe we can. I think if we change the manager, then there's a chance, because you saw at the Villa with Unai Emery the difference that a good, experienced, knowledgeable manager can do when they come in. And we've had lots of excuses this season, haven't we? We've been told pretty much right off the first 10 fixtures, well, we've got to play these again. So we're writing off 20 fixtures. So we need 12 wins from 18 games, which is just not going to happen when you've won 1 in 19. So I don't think under Gary O'Neill the team will stay up. I don't believe there's enough there to do it. I just don't see us getting the points that we'll need. I mean, we're in a position now after just 9 games of a season that a win doesn't carry us out the bottom 3. So you're already adrift, aren't you? And honest question, do you two think Southampton will stay up?
No.
Well, there you go. They're on the same. They're on 1 point less than us, aren't they? So if they're really in the
all
brown
their points,
stuff,
mate, what are you talking about?
But if they're in the brown stuff, then so are we. I don't think so.
There's no question we're in the brown stuff. We absolutely are. But as Tyler mentioned, there is. I mean, obviously, I've got to. You two both said we're going to get relegated. I've got to go on a positive spin. I can't do a triple doom hit on like episode 108. The players are better than bottom of the league. The question is, though, the big question is the manager exactly? And we don't know. We want him to prove it. But I would say, and I'm going to grab it as a positive, the last 2 games against one of the best teams in the world and a team that we should be playing European football next season, Wolves are 20 seconds away from coming away from being unbeaten in both those games. Rubbish sides don't do that. And Wolves are unfortunate not to have 2 points. Yes, I'm clutching at straws, but if that's the level of performance of the last 2 games, I feel more positive than I do negative.
But we took 11 points from these fixtures last season. So you're 9 points worse off over those. And yeah, it's a good performance, but you could argue the Man City game is a full rearguard action, isn't it? I mean, the low block, as it's been described, which is a new one on me. I call it parking the bus, but we just stayed as deep as we could against City and hoped it would drop. We were really heavily outplayed in the first half against Brighton, and then we came into it a little bit in the second half through a desperation move. So until you win a game and you're into November and you haven't won a football match, I mean, how do you expect to go and win 11 or 12 in the remaining months when you've won 1 in 19. And I know there's an argument as to whether or not last season's relevant. For me, it is, because it shows the trend of the manager and the fact that he can't get out of these kind of situations. So if you don't beat Palace, that's 10 games without a win. It's unsurvivable, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's well, I'm going to back him. I'm still going to say, you know what?
I hope you're right.
Maybe it's my heart speaking way more than my head, and you two have proved me wrong more often than not, and that's why you're the pundits on the show to guide me in the right direction, and hopefully your misery will be proven wrong. But we shall see. These players can do better, but as Tyler was mentioning earlier on, the manager has to do better. We need more of the last 2 games as opposed to the last 20 games. If the level is the last 2 games, when there's some guile and some steel and there's a bit of quality to get 2 goals and a bit of belief, then who knows? But it all starts on Saturday. It starts on Saturday. It is a must win. And I know that's a phrase that sort of caused some debate on Twitter, but I think it has to be 6 from 6. I don't think it's a world disaster if it's 4 from the next 2, but I think 6 from 6 is ideal. But if Wolves get 4 points, if we're talking again in 2 weeks' time and we've got 4 points and then we've got 6 in total, I think we're going to be feeling a lot better than we do now. And
still be in the bottom 3 though, won't we? Yeah, still be in the bottom 3.
It doesn't matter if we're in the bottom 3 until the game 38. If we're 17th, then that's all I care about now. That's low ambition from where this side should be, but if 17th is on the table, we've still got to go for it. And I do think Wolves can finish above Leicester and Southampton. I really do. So let's see. On Saturday afternoon, it's the 5:30 kickoff against Crystal Palace. I beat Spurs 1-0 the weekend. Spurs are such a random side. They went 2-0 up away at Brighton. They were absolutely brilliant and threw that away. Lost 3-2. Yet we were better side against Brighton. Football is such a funny game. Now, gentlemen, we talked about the debate earlier on. 4 at the back, 5 at the back, 3-4-3. I do not know, but I can't see Gary O'Neill, unless it's the hybrid with Totti left back and that ain't Nori further forward, but I just can't see that. I think Wolves will go to a back 4, and I do think it'll be a 4-2-3-1 with a positive formation. Chris Tyler.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it will be. I think if Johnson's fit, he comes back in. I think Sarabia might start the game. What's changed for him since half-time against Brighton? Nothing. He knows he's got to win these 2 football matches. Otherwise, we've talked about sacking him, whatever, but he has to, doesn't he? Whether we do or not is a different ball game, but I want to see a positive front football. I want to see the Wolves that we saw in the second half against Brighton. So I would go 4-2-3-1 or whatever you want to call it, 4-4-2, depending if you've got the ball or you haven't. But I think Sarabia has to play. I think Kuna, Strand Larsen have to play. There's an argument as to who the 4th forward is. Bellegarde, maybe, just to give you a bit coming the other way. Do you just go for it with Forbes, Guedes? There's options there, isn't there? But I think I'm with you. For me, it's a back 4, and I think he'll stick to his guns. It might be the end of him, and it might be the sword he dies on, but I think he'll do it.
Nocky, one thing that was interesting we talked about earlier on the show is Joe Gomez and his ball recovery skills, and I think that really complements Tommy Doyle. And I think that partnership, they start on Saturday. But equally, I don't think it will be. If it was Lamina and Andre, I'll be happy as well. I'm comfortable now with pretty much any combination of those 4. However, what I don't want is a 4-2-3-1 with Joe Gomez playing as a right forward to shoehorn him in. The manager has to be brave now, and not just be brave in terms of the way he's setting up. He has to be brave with his selection. And unfortunately, someone's going to be unhappy they've been dropped, but it has to happen. We cannot go into that game with 3 centre midfielders having 1 out of position, because Wolves' right-hand side in the first half, I felt sorry for Joe Gomez. You make him look a bad footballer and he's not. You put players in the natural positions. Forbes came on, didn't play great, but he was quick and he was worrying them, winning a couple of corners. Sarabia, weak, slow, but give him on his left foot, he makes things happen. So, yeah, for me, Nocky, it's all about balance on Saturday. Square pegs, square holes.
I'm a little bit nervous about a 4 against Palace. I think Palace...
They've won 1 game all season.
I know, but I think a 4 is all wrong in this game. I really do. I think it will play right into their hands, and I think that we're going to get... I think there's going to be too much space for them to play. If it was me, I would go with 3. I don't think he will. I think he'll go a 4, and I think, like you say, he'll be willing in a position now where he's willing to die on that hill. But I just have a little bit of a fear about going 4 against these. I think we're going to be far too exposed.
Tyler?
I mean, if you can't go to back 4 home to Palace, you might as well just call it a day, mightn't you?
But a 3 at the back doesn't have to be negative, does it?
I can live with the 3-4-3, yeah, I can. If Aguero and Semedo are high, and I've got Sarabia, Kuna, Strand Larson, and I've got Doyle and Gomez, I'm happy with that. If the 3-5-2, like it was for the first half, not for me.
All 3 of his goals have come from crosses from the wide position. So if you pull your wing backs back into full backs, you've got the gun, but you've took the bullets away, haven't you? So you're almost removing it. And I just think the way they play, I can just see us getting caught out in a 4. I hope I'm wrong, and I really hope you two are right. I just feel it's all wrong against Palace.
But has he ever played a 3-4-3? You know, not like I know he does the hybrid, but has he ever played like a Nuno 3-4-3 with 2 wingers and a striker? He's not done it, has he?
No, I mean it's all different hybrids and different versions, isn't it? But it's you either go from 3 natural centre halves, which you're then playing a solid 3 at the back, or you go to a kind of hybrid system with people playing off and all that. And I get it, when you do go to a 3, you risk losing João Gomez out to a wide attacking position. But I don't know. I'm just nervous about a 4. I think it's a must win. I don't go with this. It's a draw or a must not lose. If we don't win this, I think that's curtains for us. I really do. So you've got to get it right. And 4, it might just be the fact that 4 hasn't worked all season, other than 7 or 8 minutes against Brighton. The rest of the time, it's been a disaster. We've been so exposed, and set pieces in particular have really hurt us. And you know what Palace are going to do. They're going to try and put the ball in. They've got some big lads up front. I don't know. I'm just a little bit nervous.
I think that's a bit harsh on Saturday, Nocky. I know we keep talking about it, but I don't think it worked for 3 or 4 minutes on Saturday. I think Wolves were the better side second half. I think that was a really good performance. They had they had 2 chances. There was a pass back from Sarabia, and it was their goal from Evan Ferguson. Otherwise, they didn't do anything, and Wolves were the better. I mean, we're not going to agree on everything, but I thought Wolves were really good second half.
But how many real chances did we create in that? You know, is it an argument the Wolves played well, or is there an argument that it was very professional by Brighton and they got the second goal that should have killed the game off? Because we had a couple of half chances, a couple of half headers, but we weren't peppering them and hammering them back, were we? They were very content in what we were doing, and they went 2-0 up, and you go 2-0 up on 8. Yeah, there should be game over, shouldn't it? And it's only the fact that we got straight back into it. And I'm not knocking the lads for that; they were brilliant to get back in. But if that was us, it was similar to the West Brom game last season, wasn't it? When they were having a little bit of the ball, they were coming at us, but we were always relatively comfortable. That's sort of how it felt to me.
Yeah, I mean, everyone sees the game differently. We're here to exchange views, aren't we, and have a debate on things. But I think it'll be. I think he's not. I don't know. Is he going to drop Totti? He loves Totti, doesn't he? But I think he goes for it. I think Dawson obviously has to play because Mateta's an absolute punter, a big old boy. Santiago, again, we've talked about him a long time. I think he's earned his place. Semedo right back. Aït-Nouri, Johnson comes back in. If Lamina is injured and he hasn't trained earlier in the week at the open training, probably be Tommy Doyle and João Gomez. And I think Sarabia comes in. Sarabia, Strand Larson, Cunha. And then I'm not really sure here. Does he bring Forbes in?
How many are you playing? 15? We might get a point then. Jokes aside on Lamina, though, are either of you starting it? When did he? Let's have a good game.
No, I mean his recovery numbers and tackles are as good as anybody's, but I think he's let himself down with the ball. But I also think this hybrid system hasn't suited him at all. When he sat as a 2 last year, I think it really suited him. Whereas now he's asking to do something different, and he's been pulled a bit left and right. I don't think that suits him.
Did you say you're playing Sarabia?
Yeah.
I thought Sarabia had a good game. I do think he had a good game, but
4-2-3-1.
That's a hell of a risk for a guy who's hardly kicked the ball this season to start him in a game like this.
Yeah, I think Wolves need to open the door, and they've got to go for it. Well, who would you play, Nocky?
If I was going a 4, I don't know. We're struggling really, aren't we? I mean, Sarabia is your natural option. I just think when a player's not had any football, to put him into a game like this. I mean, he needs space to play. He needs pockets of space. I don't see him getting that against the Palace. And we spoke about him last season, that you play him against the teams when you're going to have plenty of space to operate in. That's when you're going to get the best out of him. If we're going to play him and maybe push him out to the right-hand side, I'm not sure that's going to work. But then have we got much else to come in?
It could be a game for Bellegarde. I'm not a biggest fan, but Bellegarde gives you a bit going both ways, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think Bellegarde would be my choice.
Like that.
So
I mean, Sarabia comes up.
You go 4-2-3-1, Bellegarde right, and are you having Forbes on the left?
Oh, God.
That was one of the worst performances I've ever seen on Saturday.
We're worse than I thought.
We know Larson's going to be the 9. Cooney's going to be the 10 just off him. We know that's happening regardless of the formation. So then if it's left and right, then what are our options? Because
what's Tim Steele up to on Saturday?
I mean, you like one turbo on one who's got the magic.
I like the option of pace, I do. But how's Guedes not getting a kick if someone like Forbes is? Do you know what I mean? It just doesn't make sense.
Forbes is very much he's a bit of a lottery, isn't he? And he'll give the ball away horrendously. It's not a game we can afford to get wrong, is it? So you're risking it. Well, that's my kind of point with Sarabia. I do think he's a good player, but I don't think it's right to start him. I'd probably be nudging Guedes. I'd probably
who would you trust more with the ball, Forbes or Sarabia? It's that conversation.
Yeah, I agree. But if you're playing Doyle, you've got your pick lock there, right?
Yeah, if Wolves are dominating the ball and they're in positions left and right, there's no one else in the world who wants the ball than Sarabia, because he can put the ball in for Strand Larsen, who has already proved he's a great centre forward, a box player. If Wolves are countering, you want Forbes, because Sarabia isn't countering for anything at all, and people are frightened of pace. He's got loads of that. He wasn't great on Saturday, but he made them sit back because of his pace. He forced Brighton back. Just the thought of him getting in behind there. So he played his part, not great, but even his presence frightened them. So interesting.
All right, to answer your question, I'm going Bellegarde, Kuna, Sarabia, and Strand Larsen.
I'm comfortable with that, but I think I'm starting Forbes.
Bellegarde's your insurance policy, isn't he? If you have to go to a 3, Kuna.
Well, he's the one guy from the midfield that can travel with the ball, can't he?
Yeah, both ways.
He can push and go. Prediction time, gentlemen. We've done an hour and 7 minutes so far, so I'm paying you both overtime. Your prediction, please. Your first goal scorer and your score. And we'll start with you, Nocky, and that cheeky grin. Everyone's hashtag Nocky's got sneaky.
It just stinks of a 1-1, doesn't it? It absolutely stinks of a 1-1. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that we go out and we 3 up in 40 seconds and the game's dead and buried. But it just feels like a 1-1. I think Palace score first as well, Mateta, and then 1-1. And I'm going to go for an outsider, Rodrigo Gomez off the bench.
Lovely. Tyler.
Do you know what? 2-1 the Wolves.
There we go. We're back in business.
I'm not normally into this, but it just has to mean something, that goal. It just has to. You can't score a goal like that and it don't mean nothing. So
I hope you're
going 2-1. I think it'll be horrible. I think it'll be nervous and edgy, but 2-1 Wolves with Kuna.
I'm going to finish it off with 2-0 Wolves. Matthias Cunha, come on, you Wolves. This has been episode 108 of the Wolves Report. Thank you to Chris, Tyler, Mark Knock. I've been your host, Ryan Lester of the Wolves.